I use, and I use this in the other video too. The NBC rules. You know, in this game it says whoever uses it first, they get deducted victory points, or the other side gets added victory points. I forget which way it is, but what I say is every time a side uses NBC weapons, you're going to get deducted your points, because I don't think the Germans cared if one side who fired first. If Americans and the Russians just start dropping nukes on their countryside, it would be not very good. I think that would hurt the relations with the Germans. So any side that uses the NBC, you will be deducted victory points from. And any time and every time you use it, not just the first guy to use it. But the Americans do have a rule that they're not allowed to drop nukes within 5 hexes of a city. So this area gets a little tough for the Americans, you know, because you've got 5 hexes here, 5 hexes there, 5 hexes there. So fighting in this area helps the Soviets also when it comes to NBC. Now up in this area, it might be a little easier. They can drop nukes in East Germany all they want. And so when last game we were fighting, the Americans actually dropped a nuke up here when, you know, because a lot of the fighting was taking place all in this area. But in this game, I'm going to try to keep the fighting take place in this area, and so hopefully it'll be hard for the NATO to use nukes. But as the Russians, I use nukes to bust right through the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment, because otherwise the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment is tough, very tough. If you look at a unit, on its moving side, maneuver side, it's a 4-7. 7 is its defense. That's pretty tough, man. You turn this over and you put it on its defensive side, it goes to an 8. If you in the woods is a +3. That's an 11 defense. That you're trying to kill it. These things are tough, and I like to put them up here and block these roads so the 51st can't use the road movement to get down there. So the, you know, 2nd Cavalry Regiment here, there'll be a setup along the roads here to block the roads. So they're so tough to kill that way, and so I have to use a nuke to blow a hole through one of them so I can get moving. Otherwise, you get stranded there, you know. So I suggest if the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment sets up there like that, you use my pick and roll strategy and you bring the 51st this way and don't want to deal with them if you don't want to use nukes. But this one, I'm going to bust right in, and first thing I'm going to do with the Soviets is drop nukes. So that is it. I'll set it up and then we'll come back. So the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment can be set up anywhere on the board except for East German hexes. And since the Soviet 51st Tank Division can enter on the board, right here is the lowest they can enter at. You know, from here on up to here. I always set it up on this side of the board, and I put it in its prepared defensive position. In the woods, it gets an 11. That is a powerful unit that the Soviets really have a hard time of killing. This regiment right here can hold off the entire tank division of the Soviets. So it's very powerful. And then of course you have zone of control, so the Soviets can't move right by them. These little black dots are zone of control dots. You can see the headquarters supply don't have them. Helicopter does, this tank. So these 3 lead the way. They're backed up by the supply. The headquarters, I will move up there if I have to help them get them undisrupted. And in reserve, I have this armored unit and the helicopter, and then the artillery can support them in a combat 8 hexes away. So they cover the whole front line when the Soviets become engaged. Now, I put this one on a road. When you go onto the road, you ignore combat modifiers of other terrain. Okay, that's fine. So I don't get the 11 for this one. It's just 8. but it's still very powerful. And then sometimes I'll even put these on the road, like here, and spread them out a little more, just depending what I'm thinking here. Because the only way for this 51st to blast through him, if he doesn't want to fight him, is to nuke him. And if he nukes him on the road, then he damages the road, and the road becomes blocked, and then he can't use it for the rest of his units. So sometimes I do that. But for today, I put them off to the sides of the roads, except for this one. So this one is covering that 51st from coming on. So the rest of the NATO setup, the most important ones to me are these Hawk systems. Okay, there's 3 Hawk systems here, and this supply unit, the black one right here, can be used to supply the other units too, but I just keep them here, and only if we get in danger of losing the supply truck for each of these brigades will I bring that one up. But you can see I set up the Hawks on this side of the board. They have to be south of row 15 here. But I always go to this side of the board because this is where the 51st comes in, and this is where all the air units can come in. So you see I cheat that way. And actually, as the Soviets right now, I was deciding, it sure looks tempting to come in on this side where he has to shift everything, but I've done it before where I've had to shift the AA guns, and it takes, you got to move, especially if you're not on the road. You got to get the road because they're wheeled vehicles. That takes a turn. Then you got to keep them flipped over. Then they got to move to where you want them to get to, and if you want them in a good spot back off the road, like I got here, they're in the wooded spots off the road. That takes, a couple more turns. It takes like 4 turns, and what they're saying 3 hours a turn. So that's how long it takes to get these shifted. But they can just get them shifted over here, and then with the American planes able to just come in here and control this whole battlefield here, I'm tempted to tack over here, but I just don't see it worthwhile to do it. So I will stay over here. Now I set up the Hawks always in the woods, with no woods around them, you see here, and you got to watch the elevation. See, this elevation's the same, so this Hawk system can actually shoot in this direction because there's no woods in front of them. So same here, and same here. Like this one wouldn't be able to shoot in this direction. It can only shoot out in this way, which is really all I'm concerned about. This one's in a good spot. These 3 are really in a good spot to cover this whole area. These 2 are in a great spot to cover the area. And then I do have one on this side, just in case the Soviets do come into this side. You got to have something ready. But if I have to shift these, I will. So that's how I set up the Hawk systems. And I keep them in the woods because if you're on the road, you lose the wood modifier, and you're -1 off your B factor. So I don't set these in the wood. If you keep them off the road, they get a 2 defense plus a 2 for the woods. So they're actually a defense of a 4. So it's pretty good when you set them up in the woods like that. So I like that. Everything else has to be within so many hexes of a certain hex. Now, one of these, this 7th Corps assets, says C34. Now, I was looking through a lot of the comments in the forum on Game Board Geek, and I guess people didn't like that it said C34, and somebody said it went to CC34. I really don't think I agree with that, because if you notice, almost every unit that is set up to come in on roads. They're all set up to come in on roads. Now right here, you're within few hexes of this area, so you can go out 5 from the city itself. But you're still on roads. To pick CC34, I thought was kind of ridiculous. So what I did was I just did the 7th Corps assets on C34, which is right here. And then I counted 2 hexes over, because there's 2 hexes here not played. So it's 2 plus 7 more. That's 9 hexes away from here, and that's where they went. Now, just in case I am wrong, I went ahead and set up the artillery brigade, 9 hexes from CC34. So I kind of split that up. Everything else is within the ranges here. And as you know, in the last video, if you watch it, I like to bring the mechanized division in here to defend, and I like to send the armor division to attack. So I will quickly get these units where I need them to be. The 7th Corps assets will be in this area. The 3rd mechanized units here will be in this area. And the divisions, armor divisions, as you see most of them are coming in over there, will go into attack the side. And you can see the mechanized, I got 1 brigade set up because they're going to head up this road. Their job is to get in behind this river and defend behind the Mines River. So, because Soviets have 2 divisions that come in from this side of the board, so it's a good defensive position to be in. I like to get the engineers up here, and I like to blow the bridge here, 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 everywhere I can. I like to blow these bridges. I don't like them coming across. Now, as far as the bridges on this side, I'll have to see how the game goes, whether I like to blow them or not. But usually I don't like blowing the bridges on this side, because if the Soviets are going to attack right here, I like to be able to get over the river quick. Now, I was also noticing that people were complaining about the engineers not really helping them get across the river. It's only cost an extra movement point, but let me say, I played this game. I probably played about every scenario once, and I played the campaign scenario twice, and this is all against other people. So when you're talking about trying to move, you only got 6 movement factors. So let me tell you, when you have zone of control going on, or you have woods you're trying to get through, or you got to count all this elevation, your movement does not go far at all. So to have to add another extra movement to just across the river is pretty killer. So I don't mess with the engineer rules. I try not to change too many rules that I don't have to. That's why I'm keeping the artillery rules the same. I'm keeping all the rules the same. And I'm not changing the engineers. Watch, when you start fighting and you're trying to fight around elevation and woods, man, you're going to be like, man, you just don't have enough movement points to do anything half the time. I did think about changing the helicopter rules and allowing them to shoot 2 hexes away. Just for the fact that it's tough for a ground unit to engage a helicopter. So with that being said, back in the 80s, anti-tank guided, which is I think this game's based in the 80s, 85 or whatever. Anti-tank guided missiles on a helicopter and on tanks, or armored vehicles, they all went about the same distance. The Hellfires that the Apaches came out with, of course, they can go a little farther. But I did toy with the idea of letting them shoot 2 hexes away, but nope, I'm not doing it. We're just going to keep those rules the same. That's the American setup. And as you can see, what I do around the board is I use this turn track, and I put 1 headquarters on the turn track. That way I don't forget what units come in, because otherwise you're always looking in the book, and they got them all listed, and they're not in order. It's like bounces around, and you got to constantly look to see when they come in order. So I just put the headquarters here. So on these turns, these units will come into the game. So the headquarters are here. It tells me what units are coming in the game, and then where the units come in at, I actually put the forces around here. This comes in on this road. These ones will come in between these two. They can come in this road, or anywhere in between. The 6th Guards Tank Division comes in between these 2 roads. The 18th Motorized comes in between these 2 roads. The Central Group Forces and all the other things can come in anywhere along the north. The 51st can come in between this road and this road. The Germans here come on these 2 roads. So, and this one comes in at this road. So it's pretty easy for me. I just go, oh, this one's coming in. So on turn 1, we have the 51st Tank Division is going to enter the board. They enter by moving in. And then when it's the NATO turn, they actually have a division coming in, a brigade coming in from the armored division. So that's just how I keep track of that. Now, as far as the Soviet aircraft went, I haven't put the Americans out yet. I wrote it right here. I used for the Soviet Wild Weasels plane 4, 5, 6, and 32. They're all MiG-23s. And those are added to the game. Remember, I didn't take any planes out of the Soviet countermix. I just added them what the general gave them. So I added those 5 Su-27s. I added that drone. You can see this is a copy, and it's not very good, but I'll change it at a later time. Like if I was playing somebody else, I would definitely change it. But you can see the bottom is going to be black just like that, so you know it's the electronic control aircraft. But I did change an Su-24 into an electronic control without taking an Su-24 away from their close air support ability. They still have 3. See, that's one thing I just don't like. I mean, the Su-24 is their best close support aircraft, and they want you to take one away and make an electronic control out of it. It's just too killer against the Soviets. So the Soviets have 36 planes basically, and that's their setup. So, and then the Americans, see here, the Soviets have 36 aircraft now. The Americans have 62, and their aircraft is crazy. I mean, the F-15 fighter is a Fight 1, but the F-16, the French Ice, the Canadian planes, the French Mirage, they're all 4s and 3s, so very good. The electronic Wild Weasel stuff is very good. The EF-111s are electronic jamming planes. The RFs are made here for reconnaissance. There's 5 of them. Then, of course, 2 drones, and there's 4 Wild Weasels, and there's also the new F-15E Wild Weasels. I put 2 of them in there. So there's 6 Wild Weasels there. Soviets have 4. Then they have the F-117 fighter, stealth fighter, the F-111 bombers, the Tornadoes, great numbers on their bombing runs. We have the new F-15Gs for the Wild Weasels, 2 of them, that can shoot a reacting arm missile every round. Now, since we're doubling this to 20, we're still going to say every air round up to 10. So they can fire 10 times before they come off the board, where other regular Wild Weasels can only fire 1 reacting arm and 1 arm combat. But the new F-15G will be able to fire a reacting arm 10 times. Yeah, just crazy stuff they got here. And then, the rules with the F-117, they can combine with scouting with helicopters. They can combine their attack with other bombers. Just good stuff going on there for the Americans. 3rd Mechanized will defend this area. The armored divisions will attack up here, straight in this direction. The Soviet game plan is to bust through the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment and come to Beirut as fast and as hard as I can, and I'll bring the 6th right in behind it. All the SAMs, the SAM Brigade is going to be on this side, all set up back here. We're going to have all the SAMs over here. Americans want to try to get in this area, they're going to have to go through a SAM gauntlet. The 18th Motorized, I'm not quite sure what I want to do with them yet. I may just have them come in and again, they're always protecting the flank of the 6. I just have them used for. I could crisscross them, have the 6th Guards tank come over here and take on the American tanks while the 18th comes over here. But again, fighting on this side of the board, man, it's just, you're going to get dominated by NATO aircraft. So I try to keep everything on this side. So I'll probably just have the 6th. I might try that. I might just bring the 6th here and have a nice powerful punch and bring the 18th. But see, the 18th is better suited for defense. That's why I like to have them defense, have them protect the flank of the whole operation. The 6th Tank Guard is really an offensive punch, the best one we have. So once the Soviets 51st waste their units getting over here, the 6th should be able to roll into it pretty good. So that's just probably what I'll stick to.